With that, ladies and gentlemen, it's now time we move forward to the next session for the day. Well, as we all know that the digital revolution is reshaping industries and leadership must evolve to stay ahead. And this session will explore how executives can really build an agile operations, foster innovation, and align their organizations with the demands of a digital-first ecosystem. Well, our next speaker joining us on stage will deliberate on disrupt, design, deliver, redefining leadership for the digital world. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for the Managing Director and CEO Aditya Birla Sun Life Insurance, Mr. Kamesh Rao. Warm welcome to you, sir.
Thank you. Sorry, I got to be careful. Good morning, guys. These days when I want to speak about, this is okay. When I want to speak about Agile these days, I go to any meeting or a presentation. The one thing I have learned is I write to Meta. And I ask Meta if I'm going to go for a presentation like this, what will people want to hear? When I started this about a year back, I realized that bulk of what I was going to say in the presentation was not there in terms of what Meta used to tell me I'm supposed to speak. Fortunately, over the last 1 year, I have progressed to make sure what Meta tells me is by and large there in my presentation, or reasonably there in my presentation, because I think it's important these days to know what people would like to hear. And if I'm going to speak on agility, if I'm going to speak about how it's important to create an agile organization, I think it's important to ask. I was joking yesterday, I'm going to speak a little bit about AI, and I'm asking AI what would people like to listen in AI, and I think that's something that we think is important to do. I don't know how many of you all went to the Coldplay event. I went to the Bryan Adams one. Average age, of course, makes a difference whether you go to Bryan Adams or you go to Coldplay. My experience in Bryan Adams on payments, mobility, connectivity was not so great. I'm told to take care of that. When Book My Show did the Coldplay event, the only currency that was available was the Book My Show wallet. So you had a QR code, you got a band, you had to make sure you loaded your money into a Book My Show wallet. It's so amazing banking thinking for Book My Show to say no other wallet was applicable, no other form of currency was payable, no cash, no credit card. You had to load your money into a Book My Show wallet for everything that you wanted to buy in that place, food, refreshments, or even anything that you wanted to do. I don't know, bankers would love to know what the CASA balance in that wallet would have been for unutilized amount of money. But I thought it was a brilliant thinking process at the Coldplay event. A lot of stuff is going to be spoken about, but I'm just going to speak about my perspective about moving into the world of agility and digital. I got that experience when I was CEO of a broking company. I'm in insurance now, but I ran a broking company called Kotak Securities. It took me some time to redefine my role. First 2 years, I thought I was CEO of a broking company that needed to learn technology. I did okay. I think the next 3 years were great, where I redefined my role as the CEO of a technology company that, by the way, delivers broking as one of its products. And then I landed in insurance, which perhaps was more digitally backward than the broking industry was. So that's been my journey through being able to define or redefine my roles. Sorry. I just think everything today in either health, wealth, or happiness is reasonably digitized. Pick up any of these apps, whether it's Practo, whether it's 1MG, you pick up Paytm, you pick up Mahila Money for that matter. I think whether it comes to wealth management or we come to happiness, I think the ability of people to now use digital, embrace digital, want what they are looking for in real time is significantly higher. And that's been my experience. It's cutting across all segments, health, wealth, and happiness both put together. I wonder whether there's anything which is not touched digital in the ways of life that we are doing. If you look at customers, I think they want everything that they want new and in real time. I think things are progressing very, very fast. And I don't think there's a better place than working on digital in India. I was in Canada speaking to a group of people, and I was frankly admittal about the fact that maybe the Western world has created physical infrastructure of the kind that they can boast of, but I think the digital infrastructure that has been India has created. And when you look at starting from Aadhaar, going into UPI, if you look at the ability of what OKIN and ONDC has created in terms of democratizing lending on one side, and obviously the open network for digital commerce that's got created, I don't think there's any parallel anywhere in the world which has created an infrastructure of that kind. And it is one thing that we can be really happy about. It took me 30 minutes more to get to JW Marriott today, so I keep cursing about the physical infrastructure. But when I look back and think of what we've created digitally, I think it's just state of the art. I'm going to be mindful of time that is there today, and therefore I'm saying if you took, before I get to financial examples, I thought I'll establish the tenets of agility or agile that we speak about. Because I think digital transformation, agile, and blockchain are the most overabused words in the last 1 to 2.5 years, and I think it's important to know what it really means. And therefore, if there are examples from non-financial world, if you look at Blinkit, I mean, it changed the whole mode of delivery in 10 seconds. I think it embraced a very important tenet of agile, which says you got to adapt very fast. You take an example of Netflix, which gives you real-time recommendations. It's all about using data science to be able to make sure you can build on agility. If you look at Tata 1mg, obviously, when it tied up with ONDC, it kind of made sure the pharmacies that it did on the e-platform, and that was basically saying that's what the customer wanted, that's what the customer is looking for. Or you look at UPI Lite of Google Apps, which says that, the authentication factor needs to be lesser. All of these guys have used very important tenets of what we call agility. But we often say these guys are the new age companies, yeah? And financial services are unfortunately still referred as old age companies, and there's a classification of financial services, which is banks, payments, loans. Then there would be the guys in the health and the wealth space, and then, needless to say, I come from the world of life insurance, which in order of priority of financial services is behind. Lots of work has happened in the last 5 years, but I think it's important to look at what's changed. So the Fintech revolution in India is here to say, as I'm speaking to you, somebody may be getting his Series A funding as I speak, so that's the rate at which things are changing right now. And I'm not going to go to some of these numbers, because I think the beauty about India is the macroeconomics and the number of people, the population, the Aadhaar users, the smartphone users, the people who are on OTT today. I mean, there are, of course, more people on OTT today than people who buy health insurance, and that's not good. There are more people who are using digital medium to spend than to save. That may still not be good. But the world is also changing, because people used to trade on mobile. When I used to be in the broking world, the first 2% penetration of mobile took 8 years. 2 went to 30 in about 3.5 years, and now in 1 year it has actually taken over everything else. So I think there's a transitionary phase where it changes, but I think if you look at the India numbers, everything is in place to be able to make sure these numbers will jump rapidly in a given time frame. Let's pass, these are still numbers. Now, if you look at typically what movement is important from where you are, which you basically call the waterfall method to try and get into Agile, I'll try and spend time on my experience of where the issue is. I think fundamentally in organizations, and I don't know at what levels, you'll be at different levels in leadership roles, fundamentally in organizational levels, there is a hierarchy method, versus we want now call that people have to move into a microorganism kind of circle or semicircles that they work. The beauty of organizations is to say, don't build walls, but build bridges, which essentially means that you got to break your silo approach into an approach where you're solving a customer problem. You got to get into an extent of making sure that today our technology teams sit in cubicles in one circle, which has nothing to do whether this is risk or this is audit or this is legal or this is digital. They sit in a format where we make sure that we can solve a problem. That entire area of whatever 150 or 200 square feet is solving a customer issue, is solving a login issue, is solving a service issue, and the people of different kinds that kind of sit there. I think that's one of the most important things to break. So we create a concept which we say, don't build walls which are equal to silos, but essentially try and build bridges. Who is the biggest problem in building agile organization? Technically, I am the biggest obstacle. As the CEO of the company, sometimes back you are used to a certain principle of operation. They say that you are typically used to a command control kind of method. Can you move to what they call a servant leadership style, where you are asking for things, where you are wanting things, where you are wanting to make changes? We went through an exercise to make sure the top 15 people were told that they are obstacles in this entire path of agility. And if this organization has to move forward from where we were 2 years back to where we are today, what do we need to do as CEO, CFO, head of audit, head of risk, head of compliance, and all the other people to make sure we don't come in the way? So I think that was the big change that we went to make sure that we don't come in the way of agility. And there are organizations that have faced that problem. I mean, the YONO, what it faced, or the bot that HDFC wanted to put in was modeled in a particular fashion. And eventually, only when they adapted to say they have to do it differently is when we saw success of where YONO is today or the chatbot of HDFC Bank is today. The other thing that tech guys don't like me for is I keep telling people that, build everything passionately, don't build technology passionately. Because often when you build something passionately in technology, you fall in love with it. And the beauty about technology today is not about creating. They say it's about co-creating. But the most important thing when you want to co-create is the ability to be able to kill what you've created. Yeah. So if you've done something, gone are the times that you speak to a technology guy and ask for a solution and he'll say, I'll put a patch to it. Patches have no meanings any longer in organizations and of course on technology structures. But the root cause of why this happens is also because technology guys often tend to fall in love with what they create, and therefore to be able to tell them that your core system is where we belong to. Everything else, the world is finding such brilliant solutions to issues and problems. The ability to be able to co-create and embrace that is significantly important. These are huge transitionary changes, but I think it's important to be able to talk to technology guys and speak about one of those things. A lot of people develop technology which does not find adoption. You get into a room and talk about adoption, you never win the battle. The guy who has been given the tool is saying it's not good enough, and the guy who has given the tool thinks it is state of the art. You have to have some philosophy in that place at that point of time. We now work on a philosophy that if we don't get adoption, it is technology's problem. Why would anything be given to somebody else which can make life easier, quicker, faster, simpler, lesser data to put on a form, better productivity which will not get embraced? At least that problem, who it belongs to, we've tried to solve it so that we can move on and not use conference room time and meetings to try and find out where the problem lies. I spoke about this in terms of the silo trap, and I think that's important as we build organizations to say, don't create those walls. There will be power centers. The only thing you got to take care when you're working on the model of agility is that you don't enter risk areas which are regulatory in nature, because these days regulators have a large control. Some of them have walked into saying they decide what business you can do and can't do, all in the interest of the customer to be fair. So from that point of view, it is important. But broadly to be able to say when you are doing this, you move fast, you can fail. It's not easy to say there will be celebration of failures, but I think we've tried to adopt that. It's not easy. The first time I did that, I didn't know what I was supposed to say on the podium when we were celebrating a failure. I got used to it with time, and then at least the thing that we moved to was to say, what did we learn from where we failed? This is my favorite area these days, AI. But I think most important stuff when you do AI is to importantly work on to say where your data models are. And to me, simplistically, there are only 3 or 4 phases where data models can be. At one point of time, 10 years back, we were happy when we came to know what happened. Something went wrong, MIS was key. So what happened was significantly important. To what is important right now, which we convert MIS to business intelligence to say what will make it happen. So at least the what happened to has shifted to what will make it happen, and that's where your data structures have moved to. I think the beauty of data models to progress in the future is going to be about how will I make it happen? And essentially at the last point of time is to say, how will I make it happen real time? If you don't have this model right on your platform, AI and Gen AI use cases cannot be essentially built. There used to be a point of time where I used to say structured data, unstructured data, data platforms that you have, you got to know good enough about the customer. But today with structured and unstructured data available, the model has shifted to say you better know more about the customer than the customer knows about himself. Because if you got to tell the customer what you want to do real time, you got to reach to that stage. Again, Gen AI are, words used, and if the platform of the data is at a particular kind, Gen AI will really, really kick in. Today, you have an assistant from Microsoft who allows you to introduce yourself. I went to a forum and I tried it. I forgot to tell her that I am in a public forum. And there was the first embarrassment because she said something about me that was not necessarily to be known to the public at large. I pinged her and said, why did you say this? She said, you never told me that you are in a public forum. So use case of Gen AI with data and training not fully fed in could be significantly different. And therefore, there are various phases of what Gen AI can do. Alexa is the classical example. I keep saying that at my age, she's now the only woman that listens to me because she can hear, she knows what I'm asking, and she just does what I'm asking her to do. The beauty is, it can hear, feel, sense. Your smartwatch can sense. So that's one of the elementary phases of Gen AI that you have. Can it think? When we put the first bot on our contact center, we realized that there was a point of time when customers who were not happy to speak to the bot because they were saying something beyond which the bot was not able to answer because it still answers rules and regulations. Is there a possibility to be able to do what I call thinking, to say that based on the sentiment analysis of this conversation that is happening, does the bot know when to transfer that call to a human being? So we got to move to say, can Gen AI just sense or listen? Of course, there are significantly large forms of Gen AI tools available today. But we got to move to a method where you can say, can Gen AI think? Because it is able to then decipher and say, it doesn't need to move from here, but get there. I'll tell you an example of a bot that we use in underwriting. And only a bot could do that because it was a thinking bot, where somebody was complaining on a claim about a car that he or she was using that gave her significant amount of back pain. Every data point matched for an underwriter to be able to say what she was saying was absolutely right. The only thing which the bot caught, which the human being could not catch, was the car that she was complaining about, that she's driving today. She said the back pain started in 2018, but that car was launched in 2020. And it was only the ability of the bot which could think to be able to catch that from the huge amount of data that was fed in, that it could go and ping, scram, and bring back to the fore. And the last one that I don't think we've reached at this point of time is the ability to be able to make sure Gen AI can do the thinking real time. I think that's the essence of where we want to move to. But otherwise, these days, if you have Microsoft, of course, has all kinds of licenses. Sometimes I worry the cost of the licenses of Microsoft have become higher than the cost of the high-end laptop that you use. But if you use a Copilot today, I'm saying the kind of information it brings back to you is so amazing. You can just put to a Copilot a 60-slide presentation, and the synopsis that it brings to you, trust me guys, is significantly better than what my EA is able to do in about 3 hours, and Copilot pops it up in about 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 4 minutes, 3 minutes. It's about being able to embrace some of these. What have we done to make sure that we can embrace? In my service bots, like I said, when we use, essentially the ability to be able to pick the sentiment is significantly important. And when I said you got to use AI with data put together, I can tell you that when we do what we call our renewal premium collections, that is what we do calling, we've realized that there are 14% of my customers who don't like speaking to human beings. What is the biggest problem in that feedback that they give is that human beings often at the end of the call end up upselling or cross-selling. I just want to do my transaction and get out. The Zara bot that we have put, again, which is ensuring that it is calling the right kind of customers who don't like speak to human beings, today does about 1,200 crores of collections every year. It does about 12% of my renewal premium collections every year, just one bot, very significantly low cost. But the ability to be able to make sure you can do this on the right customer base is extremely important. Training. The amount of ability of a AI-enabled role-play bot can do today on training is crazy. Insurance, health, life, all of them have at least 20 products, 4 categories, 45 permutations and combinations in terms of what we offer. The ability to be able to make sure you're sitting in front of the customer and you have all your facts right was first dependent on human beings. And say if you're present in a HDFC Bank counter where we are present, where there are 3 partners, how do you make sure your pitch is right? Training has reached what it has reached, but today an AI-enabled role-play bot is able to make my sales guy fully ready for his conversation, because when he is conversing with the bot, it is able to ask him all kinds of questions, handle all kinds of objections, including why he is investing or why is he asking insurance and not necessarily a mutual fund. Training infrastructure over a period of time, if done well, can completely get replaced by where this is available today. Other use cases only in sales. I have seen use cases that we are working on in legal, in audit, in risk. I think the limitation is what you can think of and where do you want to go. My timer has beeped, so, like they say, at the end of the conversation, I'm a Hindi movie buff, so finally 3 Idiots dialogue, or remember, finally the guy is saying, "Kehna kya chahte ho?" I'm saying in everything that we speak about agility or we speak about AI or the data platforms that we need to use, the big thing that we got to work on is mindset. I'm pushing my tech team to say, is there an AI tool that can help me change the mindsets of my senior management team to be able to make sure they are more open and adaptable to it? So customers on one side, the empowering teams needs on the other side. Mindset is important, and where you get the intersection, I think is extremely important. I'll just leave you with that thought to say, as leaders in your organizations, these are things which are extremely important. I get questions to say, will this replace human beings? Will it replace my job? I only keep saying that I don't know whether they'll replace your job, but if you don't embrace this, if you don't embrace the use cases of what it is coming, you will definitely lose your job. I don't know whether the AI will make you lose your job, but not embracing it will definitely make you lose your job. And I think that's what is important for all of you to say. If not now, then when? If not you, then who will bring about this change getting into the next level? Because what was changing every year is now changing every 3 months. Thank you guys for listening to me. Yeah.
Well, can we have a round of applause one more time for Mr. Rao? Thank you so much, sir, for sharing those very insightful nuggets with us. But before you leave the stage, we'd also love to invite a few questions from our audience. They not necessarily be questions, but you can also share your thoughts, your experiences, because we at Digital Fifth really believe to keep the conversations two-way. So anyone who'd love to share your questions with our speaker right here, your questions, your thoughts. Come on, let's keep this as an open forum, because opportunities and days like these don't come that often. So yes, can we please pass the mic here? And we have one more question there.
Hello. Hi. Thank you so much for that. I had a quick question on the disputes journey, right? So there are claim disputes, there are issues that need to be solved, and insurance companies obviously are very, very sensitive about this, because at the end of the day, that's what customers are now looking at, and they're well educated about that as well. So would be great to understand how are you looking at that space with regards to technology and AI playing a role to make these dispute settlements faster instead of going the consumer court Lok Adalat forum.
I always think that finally we are in the business of settling claims. That's the proof of the pudding. But I think it's important for you to know that out of every 100 rupees that get paid by all life insurance companies put together, only 7 rupees is paid for death. The balance money we pay to people who are living, and therefore we are an important asset class in terms of financial planning. The new guidelines, the one thing that is hampering this entire cause is because the time frame between the guy who's bought the policy and the beneficiary sometimes can be 20, 30, 40 years. Nominee details is now becoming an important part of capture. And therefore, when you have full nominee details, what we are working on right now is to say when the guy buys a policy, what will the nominee need to give if an incident occurs 30 years later, 20 years later, or 50 years later, should be available with that nominee time 0. Yeah? And therefore, when the thing happens, all that she has to do is pop in what I have said that she needs to send, and we'll hopefully be able to credit the bank account directly. So I don't know whether I want to answer your question to say what will I do to reduce the disputes. We want to move to a situation where there's no dispute at all.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. It was very nice inputs. I just want to, as a CEO, how you nurtured the culture of acceptance of failure while improving on digital tech and all that things.
It's a very tricky one. I make sure that I admit failures in my thinking process in the boardroom very, very openly. Yeah. Organizations where people work with senior people keep watching. I keep saying this, that you're always constantly being watched. And whilst you may say what you believe in, when the proof of the pudding comes, when you have to make a call, people watch whether you are living up to what you are doing or not. And therefore, I think the ability to be able to do that in the boardroom, to say what you've done went wrong, is as important, because then it percolates down the entire chain. The tolerance for failure is only when somebody comes and presents the learning out of the failure. So there are only 2 important tenets that we follow. Failure is completely acceptable. There is no issue at all. But whenever failure occurs, you got to come back and tell me what did you learn from it. And the second most important thing is you won't repeat that mistake again. So as long as these 2 tenets are in place, I think failure is completely fine.
Thank you, sir.
May I now please invite on stage Mr. Shashank Shekhar to please present a memento to Mr. Kamlesh Rao. Let's put our hands together for him one more time. And I'm sure you all would have many more questions, but I would urge you all to please join our speaker offline as well, where he will be there and he'll be more than happy to address all your queries. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.